Hello again, NIFIC members. This is Kerry Shearer. I am back in downtown Napa, California, following the Sunday, August 24th earthquake that hit 6.1 on the Richter scale and caused so much damage in a lot of the older structures in this gorgeous historic Napa area in the heart of California's wine country. The public information officers dealing with this entire event, of course, have been really busy. They've just been slammed. I had a chance to talk with Barry Martin. He's with the City of Napa, and then also the entire public information officer team for the County of Napa, including the public health representative. And I wanted to share some of their behind-the-scenes experiences, some of their insights, and the lessons learned about public information response to this disaster. In this video, we're going to focus on the Emergency Operations Center communications team for Napa County. They were stationed at the Sheriff's Department. And in our next video, we'll talk with Barry Martin, who was at the City of Napa Emergency Operations Center.
I was at home in bed sleeping. I have a young infant, so I was sleeping actually in the room with my baby. And I actually live about 25 miles from here. I'm a commuter normally. So I felt the earthquake pretty good, but not as devastatingly impactful on me as it was some of the people who live and work in Napa County as well, or live in Napa County as well as work in Napa County. So I grabbed my baby, did the duck cover and hold on that we're supposed to do, and just sort of wrote it out. And then I actually got online right away because knowing that you are an emergency worker and knowing that I was going to be the PIO in any sort of disaster situation, I went and looked up where the epicenter was to know if I needed to get ready to go to work or not.
I live in downtown in the old district. I have a 114-year-old home, and I'm not staying there because it's currently getting remodeled. So I was out in Petaluma, so I felt the rattle, and being from Southern California, I just went, oh, okay. And then not even 5 minutes later, the phone started ringing, and I knew that I had to get up and get ready and go in. And then got into the EOC probably around 6:30-ish, and started calling people to have them come in.
I have a 4-month-old son, and he was hungry at 3 o'clock in the morning, so I was up feeding him. So I got him back to sleep, probably about 3:15, and laid down with my 2.5-year-old in her bed to make sure she could go back to sleep. And not minutes later, the earthquake hit, and so I was in my daughter's bed, and everything fell. The fish tank fell on us, and the dresser fell on us, and thank goodness that I was in. It just so happened that my son woke up, which then woke up my daughter, which made it so I was in bed with her, and I caught the brunt of the dresser. The dresser fell on us, and the fish tank was on top of the dresser. It's amazing what instinct does, and it's just, grab her, and as things were kind of shaking and falling, and then running in to get my son as my husband's running down the hall.
A few weeks ago, we had a 3.2 earthquake at 5:30 in the morning, which woke a lot of people up. So I knew what to do, which was stay in bed, stay put until the shaking stops. Thankfully, it did. It was really frightening for a few minutes or moments, which felt like minutes, because you didn't know if it was going to keep going and get worse. And luckily, I had my headlamp on my bedpost, and I put that on, and I grabbed my phone and went outside and started, meeting with some of the neighbors and, making sure everyone was okay.
The neighbors were amazing. Everyone's, hugging each other and making sure everybody's okay. And my husband disappeared. We didn't know where he went, and he comes out, and we're all parched because of everyone's emotions were running, and he comes outside with an Alhambra bottle, and I thought to myself, oh, how sweet, he brought us water, he knows. And if it was an Alhambra bottle, and this poor little goldfish is swimming in the fish in the water bottle. So everyone in our house made it. 2 Jack Russells and the goldfish.
And actually, cell phone service was working, and so I was called and I was activated to the Health and Human Services Department Operations Center at my work at about 4:30 in the morning. So I was actually happy to go down because I was on my own, so I knew that we would be there and we would be responding to the public health and medical needs of our community, which we did. We had power, the generators were on and they were operating, and so the first things that we did at the Department Operations Center was get our stations set up. So we We dropped down cables, we pulled out hardline phones. We did have internet access through the network, and some of the first things that we did was trying to establish contact with the Emergency Operations Center here at the Sheriff's, well, we didn't know it was at the Sheriff's office. So a lot of it was, we were trying to call some of the phone numbers that we had listed, but a lot of it was connecting, via cell phone. We were able to text and kind of reach out and just get a hold of the folks that we knew we needed to.
I called the Director of Emergency Services, who is the person who is in charge of activating the EOC, and asked if I needed to get ready to come into work, and he said, we are likely activating, so start getting ready. And then I got in my car very early and headed over, along with many other county staff that we have. So our EOC is typically located in our county administration building, and it's an older building, and the offices sustained some damage. It's not red tagged by any means, but it was sustained enough damage that we weren't able to utilize that building. So we have the Napa County Sheriff's Office out here, which is a newer building and has functions set up for computers, phones, etc. So we were able to relocate to the Sheriff's Office and set up our EOC here. And unfortunately, we lost all of our materials that we normally have. So we had to get computers. Many of us have computers that we take home, so we were able to bring them with us and just start from scratch.
There was a lot of scurrying to get plugs for the computers and enough outlets in the room just to power up, and getting the copy machines in and setting up the tables and figuring out where everybody was going to be as people were coming in. So we're setting up as people are also reporting. So it got a little crazy and trying to figure out where everybody's going to be and what sort of permissions people needed for the computer. So ITS was very active, getting that set up so that people could get into all the different systems that they needed to get into.
I think it took us a good hour and a half before we were able to get out our first message. The majority of the damage was in the City of Napa, so we were trying to connect with them first and foremost to understand what role they wanted us to have in playing this. As a county, we're a provider of a lot of safety net services and essential services to our residents. The majority of the damage and incident was occurring in the City of Napa. So really the first steps that we were taking as an EOC was to make sure that we were getting the fire personnel, the law enforcement personnel, the building inspectors that we needed to get to help provide services to the City of Napa who were struggling to get people together to make sure that they could meet the need that was happening at the time. So our first message probably didn't go out until about an hour and a half later, and we're really focusing on making sure that we are supporting the city, sharing their information as appropriate, and helping to identify services for our residents and our visitors, because we have such a big visiting population here in Napa County, for anything that they needed at that moment in time. We actually sent down someone from our PIO team down to the city to be available to assist and to help filter information between the county and the city. They were obviously dealing with a very big emergency situation at the moment in time, and that was their focus. So we were trying to help support their needs as well as respond, to unincorporated residents and, facilitate management of the health branch, which is at our Department Operations Center at Health and Human Services.
It was about 6:30 in the morning by the time I got to the sheriff's station when we activated the EOC, and the first order of business was to get some information up. A very hard decision, but an important decision to make. First thing was we're going to choose two things to update, and to do it and to update it 100% and to really make sure that it's accurate and it's being monitored. And those were the Facebook and the website. So things like other social media sites like Instagram, we have a LinkedIn, we have Twitter. All those other sites haven't been updated, because if we couldn't do it 100%, we shouldn't be doing it. However, we have been monitoring anybody that has been tweeting us, and then the questions that they have, and any posts that we've been tagged in, we've been monitoring that and then responding during different channels. But we haven't been putting out updates via Twitter.
We're using Facebook and then using some YouTube videos that we post on Facebook and on our website. So a lot going in through the website, getting that up to date, and with Facebook using, making sure that we share it and post it on all the different Facebook pages that the county has. So the library's Facebook page, the Health and Human Services Facebook page, just to start sharing and getting that out there, and then asking people who go to our Facebook page to then share it as well, so that we can have that built.
We gathered information as just basically confirming that that yes, there was an earthquake, and that Kerry Whitney had in fact declared it an emergency, and so those were the two main messages that went out first and foremost, and I think that validated a lot of people's feelings. And then from that point forward, it was basically just working directly with the PIO and gathering information and making sure that the website was up to date, and the available services and the impacted services were communicated out.
The YouTube video that we filmed was of our board chairman, who was sending a message of, we're here for you, we've suffered damage as well. We filmed it in our county administration building to show that, we too had experienced some loss, but we were pulling together as a county, as staff, elected officials, to really make sure that we were continuing to provide services and acknowledging the loss of others and providing assurance that we were going to be there to help them. Another service we have is Nixle. And Nixle is a service that residents or visitors visiting can sign up for, and it sends automatic text messages to those who have signed up. So unfortunately, it's an opt-in system, not an opt-out system. But we do have quite a few residents utilizing that service because it's something that we've been offering for quite some time. So we've been able to push out messages that go automatically to people's cell phones as a text message that links them to our website with things like, and the same things that we are posting on Facebook. Where do you take your disposable materials that you need to get rid of? Where do you take hazardous materials that you need to dispose of? Where can you get crisis mental health services if you need them right now? Where can you request a building inspection?
When we first started, we had maybe 600 likes, and then within a few hours, it went up to, was it what, 6,000?
Yeah, it was 6,000.
6,000. So it just really went up, and a lot of the comments coming in on Facebook of what can we do to help, we're here for you. A lot of questions that we were able to answer right through the comment section on Facebook. So we would, when we get a question, we would then direct them to the proper resource and reiterate what was going on. Directed a lot of volunteers because everybody wants to help. So we used it that way as well.
Our media interaction wasn't quite as prevalent as the City of Napa may have been. The story was really in downtown Napa City, so a lot of the cameras had set themselves up in the City of Napa, taking shots of the buildings that were damaged. We were getting a lot of phone calls. The city itself was getting inundated with phone calls, so a lot of the phone calls were being then made to us to provide information that we had received from the city on, just responding to the emergency in the actual event as in the few hours after the aftermath. One thing that's been big in terms of media attention is the county, as the overarching jurisdiction for the local area, is responsible for doing the FEMA declaration and for providing the initial damage assessments that feed the FEMA process, and then in turn bring aid to those in the cities, to the school districts, to anybody else who may, and to individuals actually residing in the county. So our big role right now is making sure that we facilitate that FEMA process. And there are very specific things that FEMA requires. And so trying to explain that, and one of the big questions we've been receiving is initial damage estimates. Well, we have to be very careful with calculating that number and what we release. And we have to get it right the first time. So I wouldn't say the media has been upset, but they want a number that we have to be very methodical about calculating and making sure that we get it right the first time around. So a lot of it is, I'm sorry we don't have this information. We hope to have it available by X date or X time, and explaining why this number is so important. It's not something we can just easily release.
We're really working on and improving our web and our social media presence. And so one of the things that was in the pipeline was having Google Translate on our website so that our website could be translated. And well, all it takes is an earthquake to get that done. So now we have Google Translate on the Napa County, countyofnapa.org, so we can have pages translated instantly into Spanish, Tagalog, French, and Chinese. So that was something that was a great result of this earthquake, and it's a good resource for our community. Some of the public health and medical issues that the community was facing was obviously right after the ground stopped shaking. There was a lot of trauma needs, so there was a surge to the medical 911 system. We were able to, through our medical health officer, call in mutual aid from surrounding counties, and the response was overwhelming. We actually never were at a lack of ambulances, and we had fire response too. There were some fires that were happening because of the quake. So we had a lot of support from our surrounding counties, and we thank our first responder partners for that. At the hospital, Queen of the Valley is our major trauma center. So we were, from the Public Health Department Operations Center, able to support their response. They set up their triage tents outside, and we had ambulances on standby to transfer people out and to decompress the hospitals. Also, St. Helena Hospital, they're up in St. Helena. They weren't as overwhelmed by the response as the Queen of the Valley, but we were supporting them too. They did have some concerns about their water, which ended up being okay, but that was one of their concerns. So with water, there was some interruption in people's service. At my place, they had to turn it off too. So we were just letting people know, directing people to the City of Napa because they were putting out water information. And then for our unincorporated county residents, we were letting them know that they might have some discoloration or stoppage in service. And we did not, through the county, issue a boil water order, but we just let people know if they had any concerns that they could use, bottled water instead, which we hoped they had, as part of their emergency supply kits. And I think maybe more people will have that now. We actually have a really strong relationship with the Red Cross here in Napa County. They were able to open an evacuation shelter at the Crosswalk Community Church. That has turned into an overnight shelter, which is still in operation and will be in operation at least until this Sunday. So they brought in their resources, and we were able to coordinate with them through Health and Human Services to provide mental health support. They're doing feeding. It's actually really cool. I was there visiting the shelter, and Verizon came and donated or let them borrow computers for people to check, and AT&T set up free wireless, so they had a lot of care and comfort kits for people and kids. Volunteers were being directed to the Volunteer Center of Napa Valley. They're able to coordinate donations and people wanting to help.
One of the neat things that actually really sparked curiosity for me coming to Napa County was the way they viewed the webmaster position. So it wasn't a traditional IT role, but it was more of a role under the director of community outreach. And this position is actually stationed at the library. And so it's really looked at as being a vehicle of information that is out there for the public. So things like YouTube and all these other programs that are out there that would be beneficial for a communicator to reach out to the public, they're allowed because that's the network that basically that the library uses. So I think that was that's a huge part, is it's looked at as being more of a vehicle for information for community outreach. And then as far as really getting challenged of getting information from IT and access through IT, it all really boils down to showing the value of why something is important. And if you're able to do that, it really helps break down barriers. And over the last few weeks, because mind you, I've only been with the county about 6 weeks, I found that our IT department has been extremely helpful with, and their questions are, well, why would you need that? Like, why would this come up? And if you do your due diligence to lay the groundwork to show the value, a great example is Facebook messaging. And now it's been the most recent update, it's now more of a chat tool, right? And it's in all large organizations. They have to manage a huge employee population. So they're going to want to cut down on GChat and Facebook chat and all these different messenger apps. So in our network, I couldn't get to that. It was blocked. However, I was able to take screenshots to show them that I'm getting questions of, I've heard you guys have declared a state of emergency. I've heard that people that are trying to communicate through this channel, and I was able to show them, here's the value. This is why this is important. And they were able to open that up. so I could communicate with people in that way. So I mean, you're going to run into challenges, you're going to run into roadblocks, but we're all people, and if you're able to show real valid value of why something's important, the likelihood that they're going to work with you is very, very high.
One of the things that I would share with fellow communicators, fellow public information officers, in the Bay Area region, we've been working on regional public information coordination and talking about what would that look like in a very large spread, region-wide disaster. So the good thing about that is we've really started building relationships with each other. So we know each other by name, we know each other by face, we've been meeting, and actually, a few PIOs reached out to me from Contra Costa County, from Sonoma County, from Solano, and they asked, what can we do to help? And I just was in such a state of, I don't know, that I said, I don't know, we're okay right now. But moving forward, what I would do if I were in their situation, if I were removed, I would just immediately start monitoring media and start, looking at all the things going out, start doing social media monitoring remotely and trying to, send them information updates if I see something that's coming up that they might want to address. Because when you're in the thick of it, you don't have time to, check to see how the local paper or the local, Twitter reports on your information to verify that. You're so busy getting verified information and putting it into, a media release or social media post format. You don't have the time to circle back and see how did that come out. So moving forward, I think that would be a tool that communicators could support each other by looking at what's going on in the media, the traditional media and social media.
We, in the EOC, we're working for the community. So right now we're working for the community, but we're also, all of these people that are in these rooms are also victims of this earthquake as well. And it's been extremely just amazing for me to see, the people here, a lot of these people, there's rooms that they haven't even touched yet because, their duty is to the public. And that has given me a really amazing sense of just of community and empathy, and something that I'm going to really work hard in trying to communicate out to the public. Because right now I think one of our biggest challenges is managing expectations. How fast are things going to get fixed? And it's been amazing, really, of how much we have done in such a little time. But I think one of the biggest things in communicating with the public is instilling that sense of empathy and letting people know that we're all in this together, that the people that are out there fixing your roads and fixing your streets and turning on your water are most likely the same people that don't have water and that are counting on these same departments and these same programs to help instill and bring back these services. So if we can help create that message that the helpers, are right there with you and they're feeling your pain and we're all in this together, I think the response from the community is going to be a lot more collaborative, and their expectations are going to be dialed in a lot more than they would be if they didn't have that perspective and that amount of information.
I think one of the big things that I learned is we relied on boxes that we keep in our county administration building that had all of our documents in it and had our flash drives in it. I think it's very important, especially for the public information officer, but really for anybody working out in the EOC. As we mentioned, we had to recreate a lot of things the minute we got here. And it would be so great if we could have flash drives or even some of the information that we needed in our homes, in our cars, so that we could have set up shop a little bit more quickly than we were able to. I think the other thing is we came in such a, not a panic, but in a disaster-oriented mindset. And we should have assigned roles a little bit more clearly. Molly is the lead PIO, is really working with the EOC managers. Then a deputy PIO is really working on communications to county employees, because many of our county employees were displaced from their job sites. Someone who is the liaison to the city, which we were able to get it pretty quickly. And then really identifying a county PIO, because so many of the services that the county provides are these critical health and safety net services. So it would have been great to have someone focused mostly on that messaging, and then really have someone focused on working with the EOC director and the EOC management folks to really work on just the disaster aspect and disaster information aspect. So we, unfortunately, the best training activities are when you're live and when you're live and you're doing it and you're right in the middle of it. We have done a significant amount of training but you can train as much as you want, but you're not going to really know what it's like until you're in the middle of a situation and navigating it as you go. So I feel like the days have passed, and we've all gotten more comfortable in our roles, and we've all gotten a little bit more organized in making sure that jobs are divvied out and tasks are divvied out so that we're covering all of our bases. The other really important thing is I am not a PIO. I'm a PIO for emergencies by training, but it is not my day job. So I have to come in here and take off my day job hat and not focus on what I would normally do in my role as a management analyst in the county executive office, and really focus just on the PIO, and really being clear with others who are here working, who know I might know the answer to whatever question they're looking for, to send them to the right people through the ICS system, and really focus on what I'm here to do.
I think one of my challenges was being torn between two places, because as the library director, we have 4 locations, and can you imagine what happens in an earthquake in a library? There are books everywhere, and trying to focus on PIO here and what's going on in the EOC, and then trying to get my department up and running, and also using it. The library is being used for the district attorney and also for the public defender right now, because we're near the courthouse. So getting them set up, so that's been a challenge. So maybe the EOC shouldn't have department heads, or maybe at the beginning, so that once we get into recovery mode, we can focus on that. And then the other thing I think that I learned was everybody wants to help. And we have all the PIOs from other counties, we got a lot of phone calls, and they said, we're here for you, what do you want us to do? And we were in such a mode of get it done. All I could think of was, I don't know, I don't have room, I can't think of anything. And so I think if a disaster would happen in another county, what I would do is say, I would offer something specific to that EOC and say, let us do your media monitoring. So I'd be very specific in offering something, because in the middle of it, you can't think of what you need.
You know, I think your instincts as a public official kick in.
Yeah.
And, you know, if you're in public service for the right reason, which is you want to be serving your community and you're proud of serving your community, you just sort of pull yourself together and get it done. I was not personally affected as much as some of the other employees here, and I am constantly amazed by the team we have here working in the EOC, who have really sacrificed their personal lives, their personal situations at home, have been trying to manage their personal situations by cell phone while being here, and you know, their children, you know, being away from their children, to be here to do what they know is a greater good, and what we're supposed to do as government employees.
Yeah, I agree. Your instincts just kick in, and you know that this is why you're here, and most important, to drink lots of water. And when you go home, just go to sleep. Even though that's really hard, because you want to clean up, you want to do other things, but you just really need to just put that aside, and it can wait. So when this ramps down, then I'll worry about the asbestos in my house. Not right now.